Hey everyone, Joey here, and today I'm going to help you with finding and using retro game ROMs for your favorite retro handhelds like this one that I have here. First off, what exactly are ROMs? And ROMs are just digital files for games. So imagine you have Pokemon Blue here, the actual cartridge. Imagine you took this and put it into a file. That's a ROM. That's it. So when people are telling you that you need to find ROMs for your retro handhelds, what they really mean is you need the games so you can play those games on that retro handheld. Now, ROMs are not device specific either. So if you find a Pokemon Blue ROM somewhere, you can use that anywhere you want. A Windows PC, a Linux PC, a retro handheld, a microwave, whatever you want to put it on, it doesn't matter. So I've seen a lot of people say that, can I use these ROMs on another device? And the answer is always yes. The ROMs are not device specific. You can use them wherever you want. Now, what gets confusing is the ROMs actually come in different file types, all different depending on the system or the console. And sometimes there is multiple file types that you can use per system as well. So this can get quite confusing. Like for PlayStation 1, there is a ton of them. There is queues, there's bins, CHD, ISO, M3U, PBP, and more. Then you have some times where you can actually use a ROM while it is zipped. So you don't need to unzip it if it was compressed. Now, this typically doesn't work for CD-based games like the PlayStation 1. This part, unfortunately, isn't something that you can actively teach. But my website is a great resource, and there is a page there dedicated to the best file types that you should be using for each system, and they will be compatible with most emulators. All of this is in the description. But if you want the very easy way for most people, if it is a CD-based system, you can't have it as a zip. Everything else, you can pretty much have it as a zip. This is something that you learn as you use emulators more and more, so it's just something that you pick up over time. So emulators, that's a new word there that I just brought up. Emulators is, imagine you have your Game Boy right here, and you took this, made it into a program, and then put it on your retro handheld or your PC or whatever. Now you have your emulator that can play your ROMs, and you have it, instead of like this, you have it on your actual retro handheld that's right over here, and so it's all digital and you can use it there. I forgot how big the original Game Boy is. So yeah, imagine not having to carry around this big brick of a device, and you could just use Game Boy games or play Game Boy games anywhere you want on any device. Now, a good example is a program called RetroArch. And RetroArch can install a ton of different emulators for different systems, from arcade and Atari all the way up to PlayStation 1 and so on. So like we talked about before, all of these emulators, or what RetroArch calls cores in their program, requires ROMs to be able to play them. Because obviously you can't play a Game Boy without any games, so you can't play an emulator without any ROMs. It's kind of how it works there. So you basically need all of that for you to be able to do anything. Now there's a lot of emulators, of course, besides RetroArch. There's RPCS3 for PS3 games. There's PCSX2 for PS2 games. There's DuckStation for PS1. There's Dolphin for GameCube and Wii, and so on and so on. There is so many emulators out there. Now, that's all cool and well, and you're like, Joey, I got this now. I get it. I know what emulators are. I know what ROMs are. And so you load up and you're like, I'm going to go play Game Boy. And you go and play Game Boy and that's all going well. Then you go and play in some Super Nintendo. And yeah, Super Nintendo, this all works. Suddenly you're like, I want to play some Final Fantasy VII on PlayStation 1. And it's not loading. Nothing is working. And you are cursing my name. Joey lied to me. What? I'm going to dislike that video. So there is a few systems out there that on top of having an emulator, on top of having ROMs, you need something called a BIOS file. Now I have done an entire video on this subject, which if you are new and all of this video today is useful to you, then you should watch that right after today. And that is in the description. But BIOS files are basically copies of the original system or the console in a digital file, and it is what emulators use to emulate the system. Now, not every system or console needs BIOS files. It is mostly the disk-based systems. PlayStation 1, PS2, Dreamcast, Saturn, Sega CD, and so on. I'm going to plug my website here again because it is useful to let you know which systems actually do need BIOS files. Now, games on systems that need BIOS files, like PlayStation 1, will not run if you don't have it. It is the new user trip up that gets everybody when they first start out. Even people who have been here for a long time sometimes forget to put their BIOS files in the right spot, and suddenly their games don't load and they get confused. So don't be too worried if this happens to you. But either way, let's kind of wrap things up on this. ROMs are the actual games, emulators are the actual device, and BIOS is the actual software that runs the games on the device. So you need all three of those in most scenarios for things to run properly. So the question is, where do you find ROMs? And this will be the most popular timestamp in the entire video. And look, I get the frustration. You went to a Discord, you went to a forum, you went anywhere, and the first response that you're going to get when you asked, where do I find ROMs, is Google it, or we can't help you, or we can't do that here on this Discord. All of that is correct. The irony is, they are not wrong with the advice that they're giving you, but I know that you are worried about viruses, you're worried about malware, you're worried about safe sites. So how do you know what works and what doesn't for ROMs? So here is me helping you through Google to show you what I mean. I have typed in ROMs. Simple, easy. We have the first option from Reddit. It is a subreddit for ROMs. And they also have a nice sticky for a ROMs megathread. And there is 2 links there that will get you to the secret world of ROMs. I can tell you this is safe. I think most of us know this is safe. But if we head back to Google, the same link from that sticky is right there. The ROMs megathread. So it is now 1 click instead of multiple. Between these 2 resources, the subreddit, which you can search, or that has stickies with information, and the actual website, you can see why asking where to find ROMs is kind of a taboo question. It took us 2 clicks to really get there, and we didn't do anything special. Yeah, but Joey, what about BIOS? And well, all of the BIOS files are on the exact same website that we just went to. So you don't need to ask about that either. But if you wanted to, you could search that and you'll find it the same way. Now, of course, there is limitations to this. Switch ROMs will not be here, and it is not something that I will be helping you with either. Although the advice of just Google it still stands for Switch ROMs. If you added Reddit to the end, it'll probably get you to where you need to be. But on top of that, large packs of ROMs don't really exist here either. So if you wanted a full set, it's not really the best to help you. Now, as a quick aside, as a beginner, I would completely advise against large sets of games for you. It's just going to hurt you. It's going to cause choice paralysis. It's going to cause you to get confused. It's going to give you a whole bunch of different games from different systems. And it's better if you start off with some to get them working and then move on. So start with Game Boy. Play some Game Boy. Yay, that's awesome. Okay, I want to play PlayStation 1. Let me figure out how to get PlayStation 1 working, and so on and so on and so on. When you get hit with a big pile of games from all different systems, it's just going to confuse you because you're going to try and load up all different ones. Some aren't going to work. It's going to get you stressed out. It's not the best way to do things. Plus, I know you. You're just going to be like, look, I have 10,000 games on my device. And nobody cares. It's not a bragging thing. That nobody cares how many games you have on your device. That isn't something that matters. Now, back to sets, though. And you're really going to hate me for this one. But what happens if we type in PS1 ROM set into Google? The first result is a Reddit post with the exact question and the exact answers that we want in the post. Now, also, any results from archive.org is safe to use. That is where most people get their ROMs from. And you can grab a whole set there. Just remember to be logged in, or you're going to get locked out of being able to download any files. Now, if you're looking for a general ROM set for different systems, as I advised against, then that same phrase into Google using Reddit as your guide will lead you to a ton of options. Long story short, as much as you might hate that people say Google it, that really is the answer to this question. There is no way around this. Or if you're one of those younger kids, use ChatGPT, I guess, but I am too old for AI. But let's move on to another subject, and that is ROM hacks. For those that don't know, ROM hacks are games that someone, like you or me, or a team of people, of friends and things like that, created using an existing game as a base, and they typically added new features, levels, or whatever to make a new game. So you have likely heard a lot about Pokemon ROM hacks, and there are hundreds of them in the world. PokeCommunity.com is a fantastic resource for them, and you can find a ton here. Then there's ROM hacks for Super Mario World, Metroid games. The internet has tons of information on different ROM hacks in the world, and you can get lost in this. Now, the confusing part for most people is how do you download these? So when you find a ROM hack that you like, let's use Pokemon Unbound, for example. It's one of the best Pokemon ROM hacks out there. You click download and you're excited. It's awesome. And then you get a file and it has a UPS extension on it. Or sometimes it is IPS or BPS or XDelta, but either way, it is not .gba and it is not .zip. And you know from earlier in today's video that those are the two ways that you can play Game Boy Advance games. This usually stumps people, but for legal reasons, ROM hack developers do not include the base ROM in their downloads because we all know Nintendo, right? This isn't something new. You know Nintendo, I know Nintendo. If you started including Pokemon games with your ROM hack, then Nintendo's going to be very, very mad and they're going to come after everybody. Instead, what the developers do is they include a patch file that goes on that Pokemon Fire Red or Pokemon game to patch it to give all of the features and things that this new ROM hack has. So back to Unbound, if we look at the README, which all of the ROM hacks have, it'll tell you which ROM they need as a base ROM. And this one says that we need the Pokemon Fire Red Squirrels base ROM. I think you obviously know what we're going to do here. We're going to copy that full name, paste it into Google, and look, it is an archive.org link, and we know from earlier that this is safe and it works. So now we have the base ROM, we have the patch file for Unbound. What's next? Well, there's actually a website devoted to patching these ROMs for you. So I'm going to select our base ROM as the ROM file, then I'm going to select the patch file, and it'll show as green if they match and it's working, and you have the right combination. And then I'm going to click Apply Patch. Boom! You get a .gba file that is now Pokemon Unbound. So you could just rename it to Pokemon Unbound and you're ready to go and play. All you have to do at this point is copy or move that file to your folder of ROMs and head off to your emulator and play some games. It is outside of today's guide as a scope, but I do have guides to set up pretty much every emulator out there in the world. So with today's information on ROMs, and also my BIOS video, and then my setup guides, you are all set to play really anything you want. That's really all there is to ROMs and ROM hacks and emulators and everything and how they work from a beginner's perspective. Everything I talked about today, besides ROMs and where to find them, is going to be in the description as links in case you need them. But otherwise, I think today should probably help you with understanding a lot more about this world and how it all works. Don't forget to like and sub to help the channel grow. Come join me on the Discord to talk all about retro gaming, but not to ask me where ROMs are. Support me through YouTube membership if you like my stuff. And hope you all have a good one.